Another scenario, better than the first but still far from satisfactory, is a temporary truce. Both countries agree to a ceasefire, but there is no reconciliation. Resentment seeps beneath the surface, and there is the constant underlying threat that war will break out again. Think of India and Pakistan with the constant threat of nuclear war and the intense hostility between Hindus and Muslims. The third possibility is genuine peace. You acknowledge your differences and allow them to just be. This doesn't get rid of the other country, nor does it mean that you necessarily like it or even want it there, nor does it mean that you approve of its politics or religion. But because you are no longer at war, you can use your money and resources to build infrastructure of your own country instead of squandering them on the battlefield. The first scenario, war, is like the struggle to get rid of unwanted thoughts and feelings. It's a battle that can never be won, and it consumes huge amounts of time and energy. The second scenario, a truce, is definitely better, but is still a long way from true acceptance. It's more like a grudging tolerance. There's no sense of moving forward to a new future. Although there is no active warfare, the hostility remains, and you are resigned on the ongoing tension. A grudging tolerance of thoughts and feelings is better than an outright struggle, but it leaves you feeling stuck and somewhat helpless. It's a sense more of resignation than of acceptance, of entrapment rather than freedom, of being stuck rather than moving forward. The third scenario, peace, represents true acceptance. Notice that in this scenario, your country doesn't have to like the other country, approve of its being there, convert to its religion, or learn to speak its language. You simply make peace with them. You acknowledge your differences, you give up trying to change their politics or religion, and you focus your efforts on making your country a better place to live in. It's the same when you truly accept your uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. You don't have to like them, want them, or approve of them. You simply make peace with them and let them be. The true meaning of acceptance. Acceptance does not mean putting up with or resigning yourself to anything. Acceptance is about embracing life, not merely tolerating it. Acceptance literally means taking what is offered. It doesn't mean giving up or admitting defeat. It doesn't mean just gritting your teeth and bearing it. It means fully opening yourself to your present reality, acknowledging how it is, right here, right now, and letting go of the struggle with life as it is in the moment. But what if you want to improve your life and not just accept it as it is? Well, that's the whole purpose of this book, but the most effective way to make changes in your life is to start by fully accepting it. Suppose you are walking across ice. In order to safely take the next step, you need to find a firm foothold. If you try moving forward without doing that, then you're likely to fall flat on your face. Acceptance is like finding that firm foothold. It's a realistic appraisal of where your feet are and what condition the ground is in. It doesn't mean that you like being in that spot or that you intend to stay there. Once you have a firm foothold, you can take the next step more effectively. The more you fully accept the reality of your situation as it is, here and now, the more effectively you can take action to change it. The Dalai Lama exemplifies this beautifully. He fully accepts that China has invaded Tibet and that he is forced to live in exile from his own country. He doesn't waste time and energy in wishful thinking, getting outraged, or dwelling morosely on what he's lost. He knows that won't help, nor does he admit defeat or throw the whole issue into the too hard basket. Instead, he acknowledged that right now this is the way it is. And at the same time, he does everything in his power to improve the situation. He actively campaigns all around the world to increase public and political awareness of Tibet's predicament and to raise financial support for its people. In another example, let's consider the case of domestic violence. If your partner is physically violent, the first step is to accept the reality of the situation, that you are in danger and you need to take action to protect yourself. The next step is to take action. Get some professional help, take legal action, or leave the relationship. In order to take this action, You will need to accept the anxiety, guilt, and other painful thoughts and feelings that are likely to rise. So, this is what ACT or ACT is all about: acceptance and action side by side. The core philosophy of ACT is neatly encapsulated in the Serenity Challenge, my version of the well known Serenity Prayer. Develop the courage to solve those problems that can be solved, the serenity to accept those problems that can't be solved, and the wisdom to know the difference. If your life isn't working for you, the only sensible thing is to take action to change it. That action will be far more effective when you start from a place of acceptance. All the time and energy that you waste on struggling with thoughts and feelings could be far more usefully invested in taking effective action. How to use diffusion. Now let's return to John's comment that diffusion doesn't work. John was trying to use diffusion to get rid of his anxiety. No wonder it didn't work. Diffusion is not some clever way to control your feelings. It's simply an acceptance technique. True, diffusing unhelpful thoughts will often reduce feelings of anxiety, but that's just a beneficial byproduct. If you try to use diffusion to control your feelings, sooner or later, you'll end up frustrated. So what if you diffused a thought and it doesn't leave? Again, diffusion isn't about getting rid of thoughts. It's about seeing them for what they really are and making peace with them, allowing them to be there without fighting them. Sometimes they will go away with very little fuss, other times they will hang around for quite a while. And sometimes they'll go away and then come back again. The point is, once you allow them to be there without a struggle, you can put your energy and attention into activities you value. But if you expect that diffusing your thoughts will make them go away, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You're falling back into the happiness trap. Remember, you don't have to like a thought in order to accept it. It's okay to want to get rid of it. In fact, it's expected. But wanting to get rid of something is quite different from actively struggling with it. For example, suppose you have an old car that you no longer want, and suppose you won't have an opportunity to sell it for at least another month. You want to get rid of the car and simultaneously accept that you still have the car. You don't have to try to smash the car up, make yourself miserable, or get drunk every night just because you still have that old car. So if you do find yourself struggling with a negative thought, just notice it. Pretend that you're a curious scientist observing your own mind. Notice the different ways in which you struggle. Do you judge your thoughts as good or bad, true or false, positive or negative? Do you try to push them away or replace them with a better thought? Do you enter into a debate with them? Observe your struggles with interest and notice what it accomplishes. Of course, some stories are more persistent than others. I've had my I'm incomplete story since I was a child. It visits me much less often these days, but it still pops up from time to time. However, now, it doesn't bother me because I don't fuse with it. It's important to let go of any expectation that your stories will go away or show up less frequently. As it happens, very often they will go away. But if you're diffusing them to make them go away, then by definition, you're not truly accepting them and you know where that leads. But I hear you ask, aren't positive thoughts better than negative thoughts? Not necessarily. Remember, the most important question is this thought helpful? Suppose an alcoholic brain surgeon thinks to himself, hey, I'm the greatest brain surgeon in the world. I can do brilliant surgery even if I've been drinking. It's a positive thought, but surely not a helpful one. Most people convinced that drunk driving had positive thoughts of a similar nature. The same applies to neutral thoughts. In this book, I mostly talk about negative thoughts, simply because they are the ones we most often have problems with. But anything that applies to negative thoughts also applies to neutral and positive thoughts. The bottom line is not whether a thought is positive or negative, true or false, pleasant or unpleasant, optimistic or pessimistic, but whether it helps you create a fulfilling life. So, should you believe any of your thoughts? Yes, but only if they're helpful. And hold those beliefs lightly. And even while you're holding them, know that they are nothing more than language. As time goes on, you work through the rest of this book, you will learn to diffuse unhelpful thoughts quickly and easily. But it's important to remember fusion is not the enemy. When you're absorbed in making plans or solving problems, or you're lost in a book or a movie, or you're engrossed in a great conversation, or you're pleasantly daydreaming in a hammock, all these life enhancing activities involve fusion. So fusion is not the enemy. It's only a problem when it stops you from living your life fully. Negative thoughts are not the enemy either. Because of the way our minds have evolved, many of our thoughts are negative to some extent. So if you consider them to be the enemy, you're always going to be battling with yourself. Thoughts are merely words, symbols, or bits of language. So why declare war on them? Our aim here is to increase our self awareness, to recognize when we're fusing with our thoughts, and to catch ourselves when it happens. Once we have that awareness, we then have a much greater choice as to how we act. If thoughts are helpful, make use of them. If they're unhelpful, diffuse them. Keep in mind that the diffusion techniques we've covered so far are like those inflatable armbands young children use in swimming pools. Once you can swim, you don't need them anymore. The idea is that later on, as you incorporate the other ideas with this book, you can diffuse your thoughts without giving them too much attention. You can be thoroughly engaged in your work, a conversation, or any other meaningful activity. And when an unhelpful thought pops into your head, you can instantly see it for what it is and let it come and go without it distracting you. This will be much clearer in the next chapter, which we explore an immensely powerful aspect of human consciousness, a resource within us that has been so overlooked by Western society that there isn't even a common word for it in the English language. But don't turn the page right away. Why not wait a few days before reading on, and in the meantime practice your diffusion skills? And if your mind says, "It's all too hard, I can't be bothered," simply thank it.